I'm Chris Meyer. Join me and the Legendary Customs team as we take ordinary rides and craft them into legendary customs. Hey everybody, Chris with Legendary Customs. My wife is showing you that I always have candy laying around. It's not always, but it's a lot. Anyway, we are starting the live edge bed for the Dirty Ford. It's not going to be so dirty in the bed. It's going to be the use of our signature live edge bed. Live edge tables, live edge countertops, live edge coffee tables, they're all over the place. Live edge truck beds, I believe we've only done the 3 in the whole world. I might be 100% wrong, but I've scoured the internet, haven't found anything on it, and we're going to start using it as kind of one of our signature pieces because it has been a hit at every show that we go to. People just comment on the truck bed as being different and just as much of a piece of art as the truck is. So it's been really fun for us to do, so we're going to walk you through step by step how to do one. So we went up to our logger, which is Robert. He's just north of Holmen, Wisconsin, and he has a lot of acreage. He cuts trees off of his property, drags them down to his mill, and then he cuts them for us. And then they air dry, and 6, 8, 10 months, depending on the humidity, the wood is dried down for us. We go pick out the slabs that we want. In this case, we're using cherry. The wood, as he cuts it for us, is 1 inch and 1/8 thick. We run it through a planer up at Keith Schaefer's, which is a cabinet shop in Holmen, Wisconsin. Schaefer's Woodworking. So we run it through the planer, now it's at 1 inch. So that's what we're going to start with. It's going to get finished off even more. But we have things cut to length. Always go a little bit longer than what you need because when you square it up and fit it to the bed, you want more length because you can't stretch wood. Anyway, we have it laid out in the design that we want. So now, we're going to hold these in place. We're clamping it down to our table. Make sure everything is flat. And then we're going to screw this board to our wood bed, and that's just going to hold it because we're going to have to flip it over, which you'll see, and tape the back side so the resin doesn't leak through it. So this is the first step, is just laying it out how you want it, make sure you're wide enough, and then clamping it down so we can get a board on the end so it holds it straight so when we flip it. So what I am doing right now, like I said, we're going to put a piece on the end to hold everything in place where we want it to be so we can flip it. But to do that, we have to hold it down tight. So that bottom edge is where it needs to be. Flat. The more time you take putting this together now, the easier it will be in the end getting a finished product. So take your time, do it right. And you will be better off in the end. We're on to step probably 3 or 4, but like I said, we're putting a board on the end. We have the wood clamped down tight and flat. This will push down tight and flat, but all we're doing is hooking hooking the cherry in the shape that we want it. We have everything spaced out, so it'll be the width of the bed. Always, for a truck bed, always have one side squared off. So you're ready to go. If it's not square on one side and the other side, when you go to trim it to make it square, you might end up with something too small. Our first cherry bed went into the legendary Mystique, and that wood actually had a bunch of pockets that ants and termites and bugs were in that ate the wood away. So we had a lot more resin going in, and it was difficult to screw it together because the wood was gone. So this is nice to work with. Good, clean, fresh wood. This side is done. We'll take the clamps off, spin it 180 degrees, then we'll do the same thing to the other side. Spun it 180 degrees. It actually went very well. We have the shims in all the way across that give you flat wood, which is what you want. Again, the more time you take prepping, the better off it's going to be finishing. Now to put these on. Okay, so both ends are screwed together. It's exactly where we want it to be. Now we're going to flip it over. Some places will take and put on the table below, they'll put on a releasing agent of some sort, which I've seen work really good. It's almost like wax. It just makes it so the epoxy doesn't stick to it. But with what we have going on here, I still think taping the back is going to be our best bet. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, but I think that's going to be our best bet because we want to control the resin. We don't want it to get underneath at all. Again, the least amount of finishing work that you have to do, the quicker it will go. So we're going to flip this now 180 degrees. So this end will be down. Now these are 2" by 2" pieces of pine. Pick out the straightest ones you can get at the lumberyard. But that's going to support us. Now behind here, these are 1" by 2" pieces of pine. This is going to be under the middle when we have it flipped over. It'll just support it, hold it in place so it doesn't sag when we're putting the tape on. It's doing nothing but supporting it when we're taping it. So we're going to flip it on to the next step. Now for the taping phase. We use Tyvek tape. There's many different names for it. Many different companies that make it. This particular one is just what's available at our lumberyard. It's a very sticky tape. I always fold the first piece over. To give me, when I am taking it apart, gives me something to grab on to peel it off. Now, most of the time that's not successful because the resin has the tape all glued together, but sometimes it is successful, and it sure does make life easier. Overlap about 1/4 inch, and then make sure you have at least 1 inch underneath for this to bond to, and make sure we dusted this off. Make sure that you're pushing down on it pretty decent to seal it to the wood. And then what we do, which is overkill, and this is all done, we'll take and go down the middle like that too, which again, you just want to keep the epoxy resin from bleeding through. So that's what we've done to eliminate that. So we'll get to taping. Got quite a bit to do, and then we'll bring you back for the next step. All right, everybody, as you can see, the magic of video, taping is done. This took about an hour. Don't rush through it, take your time, because if this tape lets loose, the resin goes everywhere underneath. Take your time, don't hurry, it'll turn out better, putting a little bit more time up front. So now we're gonna flip it over. You'll see we're gonna clamp it down, and then we're gonna be able to do a resin pour. We'll go through all of that. I wanted you to see it all in place prior to flipping it over. Now when we take it to Keith's, Keith actually showed up today from Schaefer's Woodworking. Then we're gonna cut, this end is square, that end is still a live edge. So we're gonna have it cut square to fit in. So some places we'll put a big frame around it and actually pour resin out in here. We don't need it that wide, so we're gonna have wood on each side. Anyway, we'll flip it, turn it back on, get to the next step. Well, we flipped it over, as you can see. Tape side is up. We have everything in place, held down tight. The next thing literally is to take an air blower, blow off the dust. And we're gonna fill in the resins with the red resin. So that's gonna be the next step. Make sure it's secure, make sure it's tight down. If you have it so it's loose, resins, they'll bleed underneath and it won't be pretty. Again, I keep saying this, spend more time setting up than you're gonna spend in pouring the materials. It'll make things go a lot easier. We have everything flipped, we're all ready to go. Now we're doing the epoxy. I cannot stress this enough. Have your table level in both directions. Use a level. Liquid flows downhill. If this is crooked, your liquid will be heavier on one side than the other. The other side will be overflowing long before this side ever even starts to fill up if you're really out of whack. So we have a level going this way, and we had a level which we took off going the opposite direction. Make sure it's level both directions, and then you can start. So, we've started a little bit of the color. This is red, don't know if you can see it, with some pearl in it. So it's the epoxy resin with powder pearl, and then a little bit of red candy. The candy is a liquid, the pearl is a solid. Okay? This particular one is just candy. It's translucent, you can see through it. So we're probably going to do a combination of both. More candy though than pearl, because that gets us closer to the color that we want to end up with. So that is the basis. All right. The epoxy that I use is from Pro Marine Supplies. It is an epoxy that comes in two parts. Part A and Part B. One's a hardener, one's the product. Don't do what I'm doing. Tint the epoxy with just Part B in this case, the one that is more liquid. Get your color of your mix to to where you want it to be. After you put the hardener in it, you only have so much work time. So this, part B, it's more of a liquid. The other is more of a gel. Get that close. And if anything, have it a little darker than what you want. Because after you add in part A, it's going to start to harden. Now you do have some work time and all that good stuff. But now is the time to figure out the color. Make it a little bit darker than you want, because when you put in part A, it's going to get lighter because you're adding more volume. For this pour, we're going to mix together about 3 gallons, which hopefully will be enough to take care of what we want to take care of. Try to use a white bucket. We have an orange bucket. With a white bucket, you can see the color much better what you're doing. Okay, so I mixed in a tiny bit of pearl. Like we're talking grams. I think I have 2 grams in there. Very, very little. Pearl goes a long way in this. And then I mixed in our candy. Both these products are from Urchem. They've been a great company to work with. That's where we buy most of our paints from also. Now, how in the heck can I tell what's going on in this bucket of color when the product that we're going to pour is going to end up being 1 inch thick? And this is, well, right now, about 4 inches thick. So this is going to be 4 times darker than what we're going to have there because just of light transmission through the product. So what you want to do is take a sample of what you're mixing up, 1 inch thick, and see where you're at. You're never going to get it perfect. But for what we're going for, I think we're a little dark. So again, when I add in the hardener, that's going to be lighter than what we have right now. So right now that's pretty dark. We'll add in the hardener, it'll lighten everything up, and we should be able to go forward. So again, we have part B in there, and we have our color pretty dang close to where we want it to be. Now we're going to add part A, and then it's going to start to harden. Now, we have a working time with this product of several minutes. This is part A. The reason why I don't mix the color in part A, as you can see, it's more of a gel than a liquid, so it's harder to mix in. But you want all of this in. 1 part A to 1 part B. You don't want to get a lot of air bubbles in there. So if you're going to use a drill like I am, use the drill on low. Air bubbles are not your friend. When you're mixing, make sure to get up next to the sides of the bucket to get all the stuff off the sides and mixed. When you're pouring, never scrape the sides of the bucket thinking, oh, I got to get that last bit of material. Because the sides of the bucket typically are not well mixed, and they will never harden properly. You're going to want to mix this for a solid 5 to 6 minutes. And you're going to think, boy, that's a lot. Well, you'd rather have it thoroughly mixed than end up with pockets that don't harden. That is a bad day for everybody involved. So we're mixing up 3 gallons of epoxy, 3 gallons. And I bet you I only put in 3 to 4 grams of pearl. So again, a little pearl goes a long way. Okay, we've been mixing for almost 10 minutes, which is more than enough. Now for the dump, the pour. Just let gravity take and do its job. If you spill some out, no worries. Just use your squeegee, push it back in the hole. You want to get in a little in each one, hopefully about the same amount. So when you do the second pour, you get the same consistency of color. Okay, a little bit more on that side, and then we're going to burn it. Okay, we have everything poured. There's little tiny air bubbles throughout the whole product. A flame will take those air bubbles out. And that's what's going to make it clear. If you don't use a flame, you're going to end up with cloudy epoxy. And nobody wants that. You want to go over the whole thing, even if you don't see air bubbles, they're everywhere. Now the flame, you don't want to hold in one spot, because then you can burn your epoxy, it'll actually make it cloudy. You just want to go over the top. Can you see the air bubbles right there? Kind of a milky white. Now they're gone. That's what you want gone. Okay, every project that we've done, has one of these holes. It's a hole that you think that you filled up 4 times, and the 4th time is the last one, and it takes 5. And then
6
the
or 7 or
5th
8
is the last one, and it takes 6. And by the time you're at 7 or 8, you're like, it has to be full. And it finally is. Now, epoxy generates heat as it cures. So pretty soon this is going to be pretty warm, and you won't be able to work it anymore, which is fine. The less you work it, the better off you are. We're looking good. So now there's still some bubbles coming right back. I just finished that. You can see them. Gonna wait about 2-3 minutes. Don't wait too long, because pretty soon this is gonna start setting up. And I have something happening right here and right here. So either epoxy is draining out the bottom, which I hope that's not the case, or the wood has a pocket in it and it's filling that pocket and air bubbles are coming up. So right here and right in here, we're gonna have to get rid of those bubbles again.
and here.
Awesome. And again, in 2-3 minutes, we're gonna light it back up, get on top of the bubbles. The extra is in a cup. That's gonna start to solidify. So when this cup starts to get hard, all of this is getting hard. So this is gonna be the indicator of what's happening on this whole thing. Right now it's still liquid, but it's starting to,
Maybe over here.
it's starting to gel up. Once it starts to gel up, you cannot pour it any longer. It's done, it's over with. Don't even try it, because it's not worth messing up your whole project up to this point to try to save a tiny little bit of resin. All right, it has been a hectic 50 minutes. Our bed is poured, it's setting up, kept the torch going to keep the bubbles off, but again, it's been 50 minutes. Our leftover, it's done, it's cured, it's set. So about 15-20 minutes ago, well, about 20 minutes ago, it was still liquid, so we could still pour it. But obviously, it's done. So, now this is the same material. And see how it's still liquid? That's because it's in a shallow spot, it's not deep. The deeper it is, the more heat it generates. The more heat it generates, the faster it cures. We're pouring at 1 inch, which is right at the maximum that they recommend for this particular product. Dirty forward, we're good. But at that depth, a lot of heat was generated. It's solid. So it's gonna cure overnight. We're gonna see what it does. Tomorrow morning we'll come back. This will be all cured, set up. Take these off. Take it over to Schaefer's Woodworking, run it through his sander, get it all to the right depth, planed out, and then we'll cut it to fit the bed. So this is the final step of this particular piece. We still have to make 4 other pieces that go in front of and behind the wheel well. But this is the maximum size we can make this because of the size of the sander that we have available to us. So I'm holding this, I'm thinking, man, that's hot. Wondering how hot it is. This is a temperature sensor that we use when we're starting up engines, actually. So we test each and every cylinder, make sure they're running at similar temperatures. 186 degrees. That's generating a lot of heat. They don't recommend deep pours. Like I said, 1 inch is the maximum. Most epoxies out there say a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. So this is the deepest pour you want to go with this particular product. And in fact, 3/4 of an inch would be probably where a person should go. We're going to be sanding this down. We're at 1 inch now. We're going to be sanding it down to about 3/4 of an inch. But 2 pours on something like this, if you've never done it before, is what you should do. The Dirty Ford bed is coming along. Again, Chris with Legendary Customs out of La Crosse, Wisconsin. Thank you for joining us for the episode on the Dirty Bed with Live Edge. Appreciate it. Talk to you.